A very good day to you as we welcome you to yet another episode of Tax Matters. My name is Olumuyiwa Matuluko. How's business going and how's your week been? Last episode we had a guest in the house in the person of Mr. S.S. Ogungbesan, Co-ord.Director, as at that time in charge of the Field Operations Group at the FRS. There are 5 broad groups at the FRS, and until very recently, Mr. Ogungbesan was atop the Field Operations Group. Now he is calling the shots at the Standards and Compliance Group. Mr. Ogungbesan, welcome once again to Tax Matters.
I'm glad to be back.
The Government Business Tax Department organized a sensitization workshop for MDAs. There was something that you said about the role of the MDAs regarding VAT, withholding tax, and payee. We wanted to share with our viewers the highlights of that your talk.
Yeah, thank you very much. First and foremost, I want to tell viewers why we created the Government Tax Department. Aside of the large taxpayers, we consider the government business as another veritable source of revenue to government, because they have a responsibility to, as agents of tax deduction. And also as consumer. I mean, every consumer knows that value-added tax is paid by the final consumer. And so MDAs themselves are consumers. So we said to ourselves, if government is that veritable source, we needed to then create a whole department that will focus only on them, because the rules are apparently not the same for both corporate entities. For example, corporate entities will keep our money and they can use it as float to run their business. But when government MDAs keep such funds, it's different. They are forced to use those funds, not because they want to engage in business. They are not into business. And that was why the law recognized that you do not need to impose penalty for keeping such funds. But we will treat it as if they have gone to the bank to loan money, which they are using for their operation. That's why it's only interest that is imposed on unpaid debts by MDAs. But for the private entities, corporate entities, we impose penalty, penalizing them for not remitting on time. And at the same time, we apply interest. So that double jeopardy for them to discourage non-compliance. And so we have created government departments, and we needed to continue to talk to them on what their responsibility or rules should be. As a taxpayer or as a consumer, they must pay VAT the same way individuals pay VAT. But then they also perform agency responsibility, which is imposed on them by the Act, which says when payment is made by them to any contractor, they should hold back withholding taxes. The reason for that is that most of these contractors they deal with, government realized that not all of them come voluntarily to disclose their income to government. So if we hold back some percentage of the payment, 2 things happen. Government quickly gathers revenue, which will be available at the end of every month to be shared. And the second thing is that it provides information to enable the taxman do his work. Okay. Because ahead of time, we already know that there's a taxpayer that has received income. So we're waiting for him. If he fails to declare that income at the end of the day, and we do not catch him, at least we have received 5% of that amount in our data. But if we are lucky that we have that information on him and we can locate him, then it makes the job easier for the taxman to go after him after the transaction and bring him to account for the entire amount. Now, the workshop focused on what they should be doing with respect to their roles and responsibility. We're saying to them, when you collect or hold back withholding taxes from the contract sum, don't hold it for too long. The law allows you to keep it for just 1 month. After it, you must turn it in. Now, For VAT, that's where the concern emanates from. Because we speak of VAT deduction, most MDA officials believe that their duty is to deduct VAT from contractors' sum. They do not understand that they are the one who should be paying VAT. I give you an example. If a contract is for 1 million, the 5% VAT on that 1 million is 50,000 naira. When the contractor is supplying an invoice to the MDA, it is expected that he will state there that the value of this job is 1 million. I, as a company contractor, I am expected to charge VAT from you, MDA, for 50,000 naira. So the cost is 1,050,000 naira. That's the cost of the contract to the MDA. So the contractor will collect the 50,000 naira and help pay to inland revenue. But we realized after the first year of VAT administration that most contractors collect the 5% element and fail to remit to government. So we quickly went back to amend the law, authorizing the MDAs, who are the payers in any case, to hold back that amount and remit it to the government by themselves.
But what we have discovered is that if the contract is 1 million, what the ministries do is they will take VAT and take withholding tax from that 1 million and give the man maybe 900 or 850.
That's what
We also know from interactions with some of the vendors that when, like you rightly used the figure 1 million naira, if he goes ahead to say 1,050,000, the ministry or department or agency will consider him expensive, like you are adding extra money. You want to react to that?
Yes, it doesn't matter, but it's the law. It is an addition. VAT is usually an additional cost. If you go to the market or any of the supermarket stores and the price of a good is 1,000 naira, when the cashier is going to charge you, he will ask you to pay 1,050 naira. So that's you. It's an additional burden for consuming that product. Okay. So in the same sense, the MDAs should realize that they are the ones who should pay VAT.
Okay, so 1,050,000.
1,050,000 is what the cost should be to the MDA. Okay. But the MDA is expected to now hold back that 50,000 and pay direct to government. What is left is 1 million.
Still 1 million.
Now, what the contractor will be forfeiting is withholding taxes of 5% on that 1 million, which is 50,000 naira. He still goes home with his check of 950,000 naira.
Okay.
He goes with 950,000 naira. So the government is retaining 50,000 naira, which is another 5% on the contract sum as withholding taxes payable to inland revenue, but on behalf of the contractor. So that means the contractor had paid tax in advance.
Okay.
And he will be entitled to have an evidence, which is through the withholding tax credit note, which in future he can use to bring down his ultimate tax liability.
Okay, so that 50,000 is still his money.
Is the contractor's money. If at the end of the day his tax should have been 30,000 naira and we have deducted 50,000 naira, if he comes clean to us with all records, he comes clean, because he who goes to equity goes with clean hand. He tells us that, look, these are my records, audit my account, and we found that that amount is due to him, genuinely due. We will give him back the difference of 20,000 naira. But it is not the same principle for VAT. VAT is not the burden of the contractor. So a lot of people have been agitating, give us a credit note or give us evidences that we have paid VAT. You didn't pay VAT. Contractor didn't pay the VAT. The VAT is being paid by the MDA. So I cannot give the contractor an evidence. That evidence is the schedule, not credit note. It's the schedule that transfers that money to bank.
Who gives me that schedule?
The schedule comes from the MDA. Their staff prepare the schedule when they want to make payment to bank. So that's the bank collecting the money will stamp that document, and it goes back to the MDA. MDA can then photocopy that schedule and give a copy to the contractor, which in turn he will tell to the tax officer, and the tax officer will understand that appropriate VAT has been remitted. But in practice, it's very convenient for MDAs to just look at the contract sum of 1 million naira and take 5% out as VAT, take another 5% VAT, withholding taxes from the amount, and the contractor will be going home with 900,000 naira. I think it's wrong in practice. The explanation we got from some of the MDA is that before they award the contract, that they, MDAs, have built VAT and withholding taxes into the contract sum before they arrived at 1 million. And that they are merely withdrawing, holding back what they had built in. That's plausible. It's a sound argument. And that explains to me that the actual cost of that contract is about 900,000 naira. They built in 5% VAT, built in 5% withholding taxes. But again, the implication of that is that it is the MDA that is paying withholding taxes. You have not imposed any burden on the contractor. That's why it is wrong to go that route. It is better to allow a contractor to come up with his own costs, so that on top of that, MDA can then build 5% VAT into it. I hope this is clear.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, waiting be this.
The deduction now for withholding tax.
Withholding guinea. Look, if you not pay me my correct money today, hey, Munu get made you half for.
But madam, should be your company paying income tax.
Yes, that one na enough load for me to carry. Why you won't come add join am again?
You see, withholding tax now advance payment for income tax. So when you do some kind job like contract, we go remove small from them when we won't pay you.
I don't go contract am up. No. I bet tell me another.
No. We must pay the money to FIRS within 30 days, and they go give us withholding tax credit note to take show say you don't pay part of your income tax in advance.
So
now to help make the money where you go pay at the end of the year small.
So this withholding tax something, it be like part payment of no.
Exactly, madam.
I beg you, give me my check.
Remember, come collect your credit note.
Withholding tax, now for we own good. FIRS, it pays to pay your tax.
Welcome back. We are still on to Tax Matters, and Mr. Ogungbesan, the Coordinating Director, Standards and Compliance Group at the FIRS, is still with us in the studio. Pay as you earn is also part of it. I mean, the MDAs within the Federal Capital Territory, and of course the Armed Forces and the Nigerian Police, also deduct pay as you earn from staff emoluments and pay through the FIRS. So there's still that problem also with payee.
Just like any taxes collected, whether it is withholding tax or VAT, they are performing agency responsibility. And the Personal Income Tax Act requires not only MDAs, employers of labor, to hold back payee on the remuneration of their workers. So there are rules to it, but we keep improving the system. You know, with IPs, this integrated payroll system in government now enables us to deduct payee from the salaries of workers. You know, it's a software. We give them what the calculations will be, what the rates are, and they program that into the system. So as their salary is coming on stream through the Office of the Accountant General, payee is automatically deducted from it. The challenge with personal income tax within the Federal Capital Territory is not in the area of administration, per se. For those who are on IPs, it is the demand by some of the state revenue boards around the Federal Capital Territory, writing to the minister from time to time that FRS is holding back money that should have been due to them, or that the IPs has failed to remit what is due from workers who reside in their areas, that are the state areas. You talk about Niger State, for some of the residents of the FCT who reside in, they work in the Federal Capital Territory, but they reside in Suleja. There are those who work in Mararaba and Yanya, outside Yanya. Yes. That's after the precinct of Federal Capital Territory. They are already in Nasarawa State. The chairman revenue boards will be writing to us to say, oh, pay us, the revenue that is due from the remuneration of employees in our area.
But doesn't the employee have the obligations to provide his current address at every time to his employer?
There is a rule that says that your place of residence is where you are on the 1st of January each year. That's the rule. And that's residence rule per se.
We are talking about penalty and interest. You did say, and this is in the law, that when a corporate body, a private company, sits on government tax, penalties are due, interests are due. But when it concerns a ministry or a department or an agency, that you found a way to say that it's only interest. What's the difference?
The difference is that government ministries and departments are not seen as having commercialized such funds that they held back. Okay. And to that extent, why penalizing them? The fund must have been spent in the course of governance, and to that extent, it's still bringing development to the economy as a whole. But you need to discourage them. That discouraging aspect is what gives room to the interest that is charged. Okay. And the law says where such sums are to be recovered through the office of the Accountant General, penalty will not be imposed the way we will have computed for corporate entities. We will just get the amount plus interest, okay, and ask the Accountant General to remit it.
Which one is higher, penalty or interest?
Penalty is normally 10%, and you have interest at banking, is MMR. Okay. MMR, but for convenience, I think we have for a long time administered just 20%. Because those other rates from CBN oscillate. Yes. And I'm not sure we've developed to such a level that every month you want to go check and see what it is and let the system determine it for you. Okay. So it's convenient administratively to impose a flat rate of 20%.
Okay. So if you are so limited and you sit on government taxes, penalties are due, interests are due. Don't compare yourself to a ministry or department or agency. Another matter arising, sir. We found instances where contractors, businessmen, those who do business with the MDAs, complain that when withholding tax and VAT have been deducted at 5% across the board, that sometimes they run into problem. And we have asked around, and we have found out that that is because in some instances, withholding tax rate is not necessarily 5%. Do you want to enlighten us on this?
Oh, yeah. There are various rates applicable to different services. Okay. The general contracting is 5%. And I think just out of ignorance, a lot of agents of deductions are not mindful of this fact that we have various rates, provided in the law. You have technical services and professional services, which is pegged at 10% when it is a corporate entity that is involved. But if it is still an individual or an enterprise, it is 5%. Okay. At times, they don't make this distinction. Okay. But for rent, all those on earned incomes, on rent, on interest, on royalty, they are 10%. And the banks are doing the right thing. No bank will charge 5% withholding tax on rent. Okay. And no company paying royalty will also charge 5%. Okay. But where the problem or misunderstanding arises from is with respect to services rendered by professional persons. Okay. Professional person, or, some of these professionals go incorporate their business. But if they still operate as enterprises, they are still right to charge 5%. Okay. So where at times we charge 5%, my officers on the field will dictate it and go back and say, no, you should have deducted the 10%. They correct the MDA. But it's withholding taxes. Yes. Even if the consultant had forfeited 5% instead of 10%, You do not need to go back and apply the difference, except where we want to stretch the law, because it's advanced tax payment. Okay. The steps which is appropriate in such a situation is to go back to the MDA to say, no, this is the correct rate. It is 10% going forward.
And the system moves forward.
That's it.
Okay.
Instead, because if I had paid if I had paid 10%, I'm coming back with a credit note of 10%, which you're still going to refund back to me. Okay. So what's the big deal?
The last matter arising, you spoke about VAT, which you say is not my money as a contractor or a vendor. It is the consumer, the MDA, that suffers VAT. But the law has also said they should deduct at source. But then when contractors, when businessmen file their returns, your field officers still ask them for evidence that VAT has been deducted from the contract sum. And you said that the contractor should ask for the VAT schedule. That is not easy to get from any MDA. What do you advise the contractors to do?
We continue to educate our field officers on how to manage some of these crises. First and foremost, I need to point out here that where agency responsibility is concerned, the withholding tax rule itself tells us, if you read it widely, that where a taxpayer has suffered deduction, you do not need to penalize him where the agent, that is the MDA, has failed to remit it to Inland Revenue. Remember, the agency responsibility is between the MDA and the FRS. We authorize them. They are acting on our behalf. And if they have deducted, it is our duty to go and collect the money from the MDA. It's not to subject the taxpayer, the contractor again, to another round of embarrassment. When most cases are referred to us at the headquarters, we direct our officers, go and clear them, give them their tax clearance certificate, provided they do not owe other taxes. Where the taxpayer provides us information on who the contract employer was, he writes it to say, I have worked for this particular ministry, this is the value of the contract they gave me, this is the amount that was held back. That is sufficient. I keep telling my officers, don't hold them back, because it is not their fault. The VAT that should have been deducted on that contract has been held back to the ministry, and they have given us the information. You have information to work with.
Is that what I should put in that monthly VAT return form?
No. The VAT returns form will tell you that this is the turnover you have earned in the period, and this is the amount of VAT due from it. Yes. You will also indicate how much of VAT you had paid in the course of executing.
Once I fill that out on that form, I'm home and dry. It's not compulsory I bring that schedule.
No, look, do you lose anything? You don't want to be delayed in the tax office. If you can get the schedule, I know some people who had gone to Ministry of Works and they give them copy, a stamped copy.
But if I don't have it, you are saying that I'm okay.
If you don't have it, the form is not sufficient, because the form will not...
And so we are back to the same...
No, you are not back to. You have the form. There's going to be another attachment that provides the name of the contract employer and the amount of contract.
Maybe my invoice or the voucher or something.
But there's a contract letter given to you. Anything that will give us information, attach it to that document, then you are filing a return. You understand? Because, in fact, it is us owing the contractor. The contractor had paid VAT along the line, whether at the time of buying cement or buying sand or whatever. He must have incurred some VAT. He's not the consumer, the final consumer. So we have a duty to refund his VAT to him. But we can only refund when he gives us complete information. You understand? So that VAT form, without all the attending information which will help us link up with the MDA, he has not done anything. So that's what we keep preaching.
Time is not exactly our friend. We have only 25 minutes to do this week after week, and we still have a lot to talk about. We thank you for coming on to the program. Viewers, we have to call it a day here. Thank you for watching.